Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and blockchain gaming is an incredible space that is going to be exciting for us as gamers and even more exciting for us as crypto investors. I'm lucky enough to have the CEO of a company that is going to be the leader in this industry, whose crypto is actually up over 1,700% in just 4 months. I'm talking about, of course, Illuvium. So help me in welcoming the Illuminati himself, Illuvium CEO Kieran Warwick.
Thanks for having me, Taps. It's certainly been a wild ride the last. I would say 12 months, but it seems to be getting even more wild every single month that goes by. So it's really good to be here. Can't wait to share the story of Illuvium with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you hopping on. I've been a big fan of Illuvium, and it's funny because I kind of think back to when I first heard about it, which I think was back in April, and it was probably on KG Jan's channel when he was talking about Illuvium and Gala and all these blockchain games that have absolutely skyrocketed. I remember looking at it as like, oh, it's like Pokemon meets Ethereum. It's on Immutable X. Like, I love it. But there wasn't enough information back then, so I didn't hop in. And I am kicking myself now because I think it was like $65 a token, and now it's up around 1,300 a token. So I ended up hopping in July, but hindsight's 2020, right? So you guys have been crushing.
65 is still not a bad entry point when you think about it. Or you're saying you didn't get in?
I did not get in at that time. I think I got in like a small bag around a little over probably like $200, and then I went heavier around 400. So I'm in. I'm an investor. I'm a shareholder.
Awesome, awesome, good to hear.
But
And are
yeah,
you staking?
I'm sorry.
Are you staking as well?
I've been staking in both the core pool as well as the SLP pool. And I've been meaning to actually stake my Chainlink in the core pool as well, because I've held Chainlink for quite some time, and I'm a very big fan of Chainlink. So I like that you guys have all these added options. That's where the real money is for sure, because we'll get into that for sure. But a lot of my community are new to Illuvium, and I'm excited to share it with them. And I've done so in a few videos, but can you give like a high level, what is Illuvium for those who aren't in the know, as well as like a summary of yourself, the team? I know Grant and Aaron are also all involved, so give us a little bit of highlights there.
Yeah, so Illuvium is essentially it's this amalgamation of Pokemon and teamfight tactics, and so think of it as you're in this open world, very similar to what Pokemon was all those years ago, and even to a lesser extent the games that they're putting out today. But the problem, and don't get me wrong, I was addicted to Pokemon. It was my probably, and I played a lot of games when I was growing up. It was probably my favorite game, and it was what invoked that psychology of collecting for me. That was the first thing. But where Pokemon sort of let me down a little bit over time was the battling. And that's when adding in the auto battler genre, which is a highly strategic way of basically facing an opponent in like a chess-like format, or like an auto chess format, if you're familiar with that, where basically all of the strategy is done before the game begins, and it's placement, it's the type of characters that you put out, and you're basically trying to counter your opponent. And so it makes, like, yes, you get into encounters, and yes, you see these beautiful creatures that you want to collect, and they're highly valuable, but doing so, you actually need to be skilled at the game. It's not so much just, he puts out, he does growl, you do tail whip, and it's very turn based, and it kind of gets a little bit, you kind of get over it over time, right? But so that's kind of what the game is. So there's this overworld element, and then you've got this auto battle element. We've got a whole bunch of different arenas and game modes that people can play, and think of it as like a fully fledged AAA game that is what honestly the blockchain has been deserving for a long time.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. When you look at what kind of gaming is out there right now in crypto, it's pretty limited, right? Like the graphics aren't really there, and if they are, it's usually more of like almost like a Roblox or a blocky kind of look. Like I think
Yeah.
Guild of Guardians looks really great, but it's still the graphics have just not really come to that AAA side. But we've seen that what's come out with Illuvium is beyond what I expected personally, and you guys have absolutely been crushing it. And can you touch a little bit on, you know, like the team, because I know your
Yeah.
brothers are involved as well. Like this is a full family ordeal to make this baby into a monster.
Yeah. So I mean, originally back, oh, going like 12 months now, which feels like 10 lifetimes. Or maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe 15 months ago now. I I'm very very close with Kane, who's our brother, who's not involved in the project outside of investing. I mean, he does help out a lot, and he did in the early days with tokenomics, but he has synthetics protocol, and that was, you know, his idea and his project that was, you know, still his baby. And I was watching it. I got into crypto like 5 years ago, and I ended up getting wrecked on ETH, which is pretty, like, how could you lose money trading ETH at $10? But you know, I managed to, and so I was kind of burnt. But at the same time, I couldn't deny, you know, we're very very competitive, and I've always been trying to compete with Kane, and he's 8 years older, right? So it's a very tough thing to do. He's a very smart, intelligent, driven guy, and so he's always building businesses and that type of stuff. And when I saw synthetics grow to the level that it did, he was kind of like, dude, you got to get over this. Like, you got to get over the fact that you don't like crypto, and you think, you know, it's this bullshit, you know, taboo thing. And I was like, you know what? I'll do it. All right, I'll get back in. And so I started investing and came across Axie, and it was like I was investing in like 50, 60 different protocols. I'm like a savage degen. And you know, deep in the communities, doing like the no sleep for like 2 days sort of thing to learn it all. And he knew that over time I would find something, a little niche or whatever, and I would jump into it, and I would start my own project. And I came across Axie and probably NFTs before that, like things like Crypto Punks and Crypto Kitties were piquing my interest. But I'm not an artist, right? I'm the business guy. I'm the entrepreneur who, you know, has the grand vision of what I want to do. And Grant, and it's actually crazy. This is the first interview that I've done where I can actually say the guy's name. Grant, our other brother, is an artistic genius. Like he thinks, he sees the world differently. Like it's crazy. And so my first protocol was go to him, you know, and he'll be able to create some sort of artwork. Maybe we do a collection. Then we got on to, you know, I basically said to him, I'm like, dude, all we need to do is make a better game than this game, which was Axie. And he was
Mhm.
like, dude, like, I'm not like, what are you even saying to me? Like, I work at like I've worked at the highest studios in the world. You know, I've been doing CGI for 20 years. You're basically showing me scribbles on a piece of paper. Obviously, I can make better graphics than that. And so we were like, okay. And but it took me so long to convince him. Like, he's much more of a skeptic than I am. And he was like, I just don't believe it, right? Like, I just don't believe that this is going to be a thing. And that's why he was anonymous for so long, because he didn't want to put his name to a crypto project that could potentially, you know, not be what he thought it would be in terms of a real game, real community. And but we were kind of stuck there because, you know, we had the business side. I knew I could go and raise the money. We had this idea of starting a Pokemon-esque type collection or game, and just a really, really basic game. And that's when Aaron came into the picture, and we sort of looked at each other and we're like, we have no business building a game. Like, we're not game designers. we don't have any experience doing it. Yes, we can make good graphics, but that's not enough. And Aaron was actually, he's designed many games in the past, and he's just never taken that next step to get it developed. And he's also got a bunch of coding experience. He's self-taught. He's super smart as well. And we came to him, and he was like, "Nah, I don't really like Pokemon." And we were like, "Dude, just like get over it. Like, we're doing the Pokemon thing." And that was his idea to integrate the auto battler, because he's a massive TFT fan. And I said to Grant, I was like, "Look, yes, he has no practical games that are out there that people have played, but I know Aaron, and we both know Aaron. We've known him all our lives. And when a guy has been addicted to a game and like literally messaging the devs of that game being like, hey, you need to fix this with this balancing and all this kind of, like, all he would talk about is this game. I'm like, of course he's going to be able to design a game that's at least on par with it, if not better, from the different improvements that he's wanted, for the last 10 years in playing League of Legends and then eventually Teamfight Tactics. So yeah, we all just sort of got in a room. I think it was at Aaron's place, and I'm sitting there saying, this is going to be $1 billion idea, and they're like, you're on crack. It's never going to get to that. But even if it gets to like a $10 million market cap or whatever, then amazing. We're all going to be really happy. Now we're sitting at a $12 billion market cap, and the world is a very crazy place. That's
Wow.
kind of how it all came together.
Yeah, I mean it's a perfect mesh. I mean, right? So like you have the business mind, like you said, Grant is this artistic, amazing person, as well as Aaron is the ability, the know-how of the gameplay, as well as the ability to design it. So it's all come to fruition. You said that you were looking at Axie almost as like that initial test case. And what I'm seeing is, I mean, I played Axie for all of I think maybe 3 weeks, and I got sick of it just because like the actual gameplay wasn't appealing enough to me. I still bred them and made money like by breeding them and making ETH, so I could put it in other NFT projects, but it didn't keep me, right. So that is one thing where this is a whole nother level above battling turn-based, floating fluffy cats. And so,
Yeah.
and so I do want to show the actual, and I'll put the sound off while we talk about it, because this just came out, the trailer, what, about 2 weeks ago? And
Yeah, a little less than that now, 10 days ago or something. Yeah. I've seen this now. Like,
have you seen this before? So, I mean, the quality of this is just so unseen in actual blockchain, in the crypto world, right? So this is really what took it to a whole nother level when I saw and it was great because, like I said, when I first saw Illuvium, it was back in April, right? And there was just the pictures, there wasn't really a whole lot to see. And then I started to see in the Discord, they would actually show us the sneak peeks of as they were developing things, and even like down to the texture and the quality of the sand, the rocks, the actual avatars, all of it is unlike anything else I've seen in crypto space. So I mean, how did this all come to be, and how did you decide to really take it to this level to be that much higher than anything else in the space?
It's Grant. It's that there's only one guy who was like, so I guess from a business standpoint, I'm the guy who's constantly pushing, making sure that we're building a team. Like, we're up to 150 people now, but what you're seeing is the relentlessness of Grant, right? And we all have this. I don't know where it came from. Probably my dad, being a professional tennis player, and like just the upbringing that we had. We just refuse to lose. Like, it's just not an option. And for Grant, he refused to not have the best graphics of all time. That's literally what he said. And we had our game devs, and he comes from a print background, and I've worked with him for a number of years, and he just sees there's very few people on earth that see things a little bit differently and change the flow of things. And if you can pull it off, it is magnificent. And what you're seeing is a combination of a guy who has that freak nature in being able to see things in a way where, you know, the art flow that we have has never been done before. It's never been implemented in a game. And we literally had our game devs say, like, dude, like, this is not going to work. Like and I was watching these conversations. The worst thing that you can say to a Warwick is that you're not going to be able to do this, because they will literally, like, we will literally die trying to prove that person wrong. And we had, I think it was our CTO at the time, who was like, dude, you know, we're a new studio. We only had like 15 people at the time. And to be fair to him, like, you wouldn't believe it if you didn't know the guy. And Aaron was the same thing. He was like, man, like, we're gonna have great graphics. I think it's gonna be decent. And Grant was like, go fuck yourselves. Literally. You have no idea what you're dealing with here. And I was sitting there and I was like, let him go. Like, run free and watch what happens. He will come back. And like, it was 6 months later, we're building out these ridiculous characters, these ridiculous environments. And it, like, to build 3D worlds and 3D characters, it takes a ton of different artists and workflows to make that happen. You've got from concepting all the way through to texturing and animation and like, it's a lot of work. But he was just relentless. And it was 6 months in, I remember the conversation again. He said, I fucking told you. Like, I literally, like, never ever doubt me again. And these guys were like, you proved us wrong. Like, and they're AAA developers. They've been working in the gaming industry for 10, 15, 20 years. And they're like, look at you coming in from print. Yes, you're one of the best CGI artists in the world, but this is a different world. You're in gaming land now. Like, these workflows are not going to work. The frame rate per second is going to be like not playable. I guarantee you. And he's like, no, we're going to bake it down. We're going to do all of these. And I'm sitting there going, just let him go. Just let him go. And, you know, 6 months later, they're sitting there saying, well, you showed us. It's working. Like, our technical artist was literally on a stream and he's like, I cannot believe this. This is actually working. It's at a really decent frame rate. He doesn't even have like the GPU power that really untaps Illuvium. And he was like, I cannot believe this. So what you're seeing there, and obviously, like, we've got a massive team. There's like 75 artists on our team now. So
wow.
When I say it's Grant, it's coming from the top down, right? And he's gone and gotten, you know, industry veterans across the board. Like, these guys have worked on, you know, like Star Wars, Transformers, like so many crazy projects. And he's just building this team, and they now see that how crazy he is, and they're like going crazy as well. And so everyone is just working so harmoniously, and it's just like, it's unbelievable to watch what's occurring. And that's why you see the quality that we're looking at, because he's not going, I don't want to beat, he's not out here trying to beat Axie, he's not trying to beat Star Atlas, he's trying to beat the AAA, the real deal games that people play for fun, not for money. That's what he's trying to beat. And so from a graphics standpoint, that's why you're seeing what you're seeing.
That's amazing. You said a lot of things that I really like there. I mean, I like that you guys are so competitive and so passionate, right? Because it shows, I mean, the game isn't even out yet to play. And usually when a game comes out, you have like a first launch, right? Or like a first version, and then it goes into beta, and then it gets all, you know, all this streamlining and all that, but it's at this quality now before even people can play it, right? So yeah, it's pretty incredible. And the fact that you're comparing it not to other crypto and other blockchain games, you're comparing it to actual mainstream games. And that's where the wheels really come off, right? Like, when this does come out, I see it'll be played on Twitch. It'll be actually mass audience that will come flooding in. And we've already even seen it, right? Like, I mean, the community has absolutely shot up, and I'm not active enough in there, but I've watched some of the conversations and they're very knowledgeable. They very much are excited to play. You guys have probably some of the best memes and gifs I've ever seen from any community. Like, the Illuvium gifs crack me up. But I've also seen some rumblings in there around, potential live action movie or maybe something like a Netflix series. Is that something that you can touch on? I think there was like a little like a survey that was put out around it. So I'm curious, like, does that have some tied back to the CGI background, or what's the deal with that, or maybe some merch?
I mean, this is kind of where Aaron's genius comes into it, right? And like, you got to understand, I don't throw that word out lightly, right? Like, I don't even like saying it because we're so competitive that I'm like outside of this, I'm like, it's like there's so many things where I'm like, God, you guys are dumb. Like, seriously, how, like, when they were telling me that the valuation could never be that high, I was like, God, you're just so small-minded. But they're not, right? Like, in their own regard, like, as you said, you touched on it earlier, we bring, all three of us bring a portion to this thing that is required, right? And Aaron, I said to him from day one, I remember literally looking him in the eyes and I said, dude, there is no game out there, right, in blockchain that has law, that has any sort of storyline, or it's just a game, right? And yes, they're being built now, and I'm talking to a lot of teams, but I looked him in the eye and I said, dude, if you don't write this storyline so we can turn it into a motion picture, then fucking scrap it and start again. That's where we're at. Like, that is what we need. And he's like, dude, I don't even know if I can do that. And I'm like, I guarantee you can do it. I know you can do it. And this thing is now, the game design doc is like 2,000 pages long. And the storyline, like, that's one of the things that I think people are sleeping on. The storyline is so in depth that 100% we're making a movie out of this. Like, if all things succeed, everything goes well, obviously, we need to make sure that the game is super successful and popular. But if those things fall into place, then we are absolutely going to do a movie. Where the Netflix series came out is Grant is kind of like, he's like, man, no one watches movies anymore. And I'm like, dude, like, he gets these things in his head and he's like, everyone's just doing Netflix, so we're just going to do a Netflix series. And I'm like, I don't care what we do, but I want to turn this into the modern age Pokemon, right? Where that movie came out and I was literally just sitting there going, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And like, obviously I'm super young at this point, and like, I'm pretty much a child, but it was that feeling that I got where, like, very rarely does it happen where you're like waiting for something to happen, whether it's you're about to open the cards, you're about to go see the movie. I think we even saw like a play at one point on Pokemon. Like, it was insane. And every single time I was sitting there like, yes, like, this is coming. And so for me, that is what I'm trying to recreate, right? Like, from a top down, to Aaron, to Grant, to all of the team members, we're trying to build a franchise that will last the ages.
That's exactly. I mean, that's exactly what I was just about to ask. I'm a gaming fan. I'm a huge nerd by nature. I played all the Pokemon games and have wanted to be Ash Ketchum for so long. But let me take off my nerdy gaming hat and put on my investor hat. And what you said about needing this to become a movie, like needing it to become a franchise, and that's exactly what sticks out is, there's been NFTs who've talked about doing like an animated TV series on YouTube, which is like one or two, and a lot of time it doesn't come to fruition. But you actually have the connections, the ability, and the community to actually create a full franchise that could go into movies or shows, obviously branch out into whatever this incredible world becomes in on the blockchain and mainstream. So that's absolutely incredible. And you know, I do see a lot of the Pokemon elements, right? Like I know that, you know, you use a shard to catch Illuvials, and that's essentially like a Pokeball, right? But
Yep.
one thing that does jump out to me that is also a differentiator is the fact that when you look at like Axies or anything like that, you have to pay, you know, hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands, in order to actually play the game. And with Illuvium, it's essentially starting free to play, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And then how does, and I know you've touched on this in past interviews, but just so people can understand, I guess, how does it evolve from there? Like it's free to play, but you do need alluvials, and then you need to spend extra money to go through portals into other worlds or to catch things, or how does that work?
Yeah. So essentially, there's a free to play option which we wanted to include because like as gamers at our heart, like yes, play to earn is an amazing thing, and I think it's going to change the lives of millions of people out there. I guarantee you it will. But we just didn't feel comfortable making a barrier to entry of you know any amount of money for people to play our game. We and it comes back to we want people to play for fun, and the earning is the cherry on top. And so you can go into you start off in the world, and you basically can go through these free zones where you're capturing these tier 0 alluvials. So you use your humanoid character to start off these battles. You can capture them using a free shard, which is essentially, again, we call it a tier 0 shard. And when you capture these things, like the tier 1s to tier 5s, you can actually level them up. And so you're trying to get, so this is where you can start for free and not need a scholarship or anything like that. And obviously we can touch on that. We are going to build in scholarships into the game, but it's not necessary, right? So you can choose your path. If you want to turbocharge yourself and you don't have enough capital to start, you can go get a scholarship. But if you just want to go into the game, try it out, see if you like it first before you're parting with thousands of dollars, you can do that by leveling up these tier 0s. And then you get to a point where someone else is going to go, I don't want to level up the tier 0s. I just can't be bothered. I'm just going to go into the marketplace. And so that's where you can start with absolutely no capital and sell these tier 0s that you might have leveled up to, like, let's call it level 20 or whatever, when they start being capable of battling the tier 1s and then the tier 2s and then the tier 3s. You can sell them to someone like myself or yourself, and then you're earning from nothing, right? No scholarship, nothing, like no capital outlay. You've literally just gone onto the marketplace and you've sold it. So that's your way of doing it free to play. Then obviously the play to earn side is we've got, so to travel to different regions to capture the valuable tier 1s to tier 5s, they all require an ETH or SILV fee to travel to it. We haven't released what the exact numbers are going to be on that, but it's not going to be a massive amount to travel around. It's that travel fee is mostly to stop botting. But yeah, there's then you've got to go and essentially mine shards from the Earth's core, and as you mine, you need to cure those shards. And so depending on the purity of the shard, the better it is, right? And there's tier 0 right up to tier 5s. So if you're coming up against, if you travel to one of the high up regions and you come across, let's say, like a Ramfire, which is our sort of like our Charizard equivalent, like one of the most powerful alluvials, you're really going to want to have a tier 5 shard on you. And obviously that's going to cost a lot more to cure that type of purity in the shard, but you're capturing something that is potentially worth tens of thousands of dollars, you know. So there's both ways that you can go into it, and yeah, and a bunch of different game modes. Like we could go into a battle against each other and throw down an ETH, right? Where we say, okay, the winner of this battle gets 1 ETH, and then the platform takes a small cut of that, and then the winner gets like 95% of that. And there's tons and tons of ways to earn in Illuvium.
That's very exciting. And I think there's a lot of pieces to that I was going to speak, again, not just to crypto, but to the masses, right? Because blockchain gaming still right now is so nascent. I mean, it's not even emerging yet, right? And the fact that you guys are here already so soon, I mean, like what you just said about wagering an ETH, immediately my head jumps right into to esports, right? Like, I know that you guys are definitely considering that. There's going to be arenas, and certain people will actually be able to have arenas on their land, which I think is like the highest tier, which is buku bucks. But at the same time, this is something that we can all engage with and participate in, and obviously try to climb the ranks. And that's the competitive nature of what we have in gaming, but also even in crypto, right? Like there's a lot of competitive, but also validity when you're like, oh, I hold a Bored Ape or anything like that, right? So you can be like, oh, I hold a tier 5 alluvial, and I'm on like rank 40 or whatever. I'm not sure the ranking system works yet, but that is really exciting. But I'm also thinking about I guess and you've shared a lot of them, but what are some other competitive advantages that you see like Illuvium has over more projects that will obviously come in and start flooding in the market once they see your success? I know that Starship Atlas is building a lot, and I also know that eventually Pokemon is going to throw their hat into the NFT ring. And I don't know if it's going to be any gameplay or just NFTs, but I guess how do you see Illuvium continuing to edge out the competition over the next couple of years?
So we're building. I want to build the most elite studio in the world, right? Not necessarily on size, but that has a big factor. You can't build a AAA game without hundreds of people. It's just, you can't. And in all seriousness, I try and keep my finger on the pulse with as many games as I can out there. But the amount of times I hear, oh, we've got 150 people, and it's like, okay, let me just explain to you how hard it is to go and get 150 people from elite studios, bring them into crypto, teach them about it. Because first of all, they're like, what? I'm not getting paid in crypto. Crypto's a scam. All these things, especially the artists, they're the hardest to get over the line. They're so skeptical. And then it's like, yeah, no, we definitely have 150 people. You go into their Discord, there's like 6 people active. It's just, it's funny to me because I'm like, if you knew the pain of actually recruiting that many people and getting it to that size, then you couldn't speak about it just so like, I don't even know the word. Like it's just a very, very hard thing to do. And so we're trying to build the most elite studio on the planet, literally. And yes, we'll probably end up getting to 1,000+ people in the studio once, 4 or 5 years down the track. But we want to have the best graphics, the best gameplay, the best lore, the best storyline, and we have the power, where these mainstream games don't have ownership of their assets. And I think gamers are going to start demanding it, right? Like in Fortnite, they're going to demand that those skins can be sold on some kind of a marketplace. And so in terms of the mainstream, that's our advantage, right? Having the same caliber of studio and as your Ubisofts, your Blizzards, like your mecca studios, and you look at the people that we're bringing on, it's happening. These are real AAA developers, artists that have come into our studio, and we're just going to keep on growing that. And then in terms of how do we compete with the blockchain projects that are coming out? And let me tell you, there's a lot of very, very good teams that are coming out. But we have first mover advantage. These games that are calling AAA, that think that they're going to build it in like 12 months, I was naive enough to come out and say, yeah, we're going to build a AAA game in 12 months. It's impossible. I'm telling you, it's literally impossible. And so the first mover advantage is one big thing that we've got, but also our game designers are freaks. We've got like 5 of them now, and it's being led by Aaron, who came up with the original Illuvium design. But now they're sitting there and they're like, okay, let's build, what does a MOBA look like? Like let's start thinking about this as, you know, a massive open world where there's PvP. You're literally walking around. You've got other people that have got their alluvials with them. You're riding on like beasts and stuff like that. Like we're not going to stop building games. And where so many of our investors, it's funny, like that, and I speak to our investors a lot. So many of our investors are like, but like the next game is it's still going to be under the ILV token, right? Like we don't miss out on that. And I'm like, yes, that is the beautiful thing, right? Our tokenomics were built by myself, Aaron, and Kane. And the thing that I was adamant about, like very, very early on, was that 100% of revenues go back to the stakers, the people who have backed us, who are the theoretical investors. And yes, that's a combination of gamers, like just your basic crypto investors, but it all goes back to the people. And so every single title that we create after this, whether it, you know, be a MOBA, whether it be a racing game, like it doesn't matter what it is, it's all going to be connected to the ILV token. There's only 10 million of them. So if you hold one of these tokens, you're going to get your portion of revenue from that for the rest of time. And Aaron is not going to stop. He has found his thing, his calling in life, and he is going to continue designing game after game after game. And I'm not going to stop building out this studio to make sure that we're on the same level as the mainstream studios. And we're not there yet, but we're getting there, and we definitely will get there. And I can tell you for an absolute fact that every single one of these games, as long as Grant is alive, is going to have incredibly good graphics with it. So combine all of those things and you start to get a realization of, Jesus, like this token is going to have value, right? It, like, without a doubt, it's going to have value. I think a lot of people have seen that.
You're blowing my mind, Kieran. All I'm thinking is I don't have enough ILV right now because you said, I mean, I'm familiar with what you guys did with like the Revdis and being able to actually distribute back, and the decision you made to actually give back to the users in governance is incredible, right? Like that's why we've seen, for those who aren't in the know, like when you stake your Illuvium, you're gaining incredible percentages, like I think 80% if you like stake over a year, or maybe higher than that. And then if you put in the SLP pool, it's like over 400. At one point, it was like 800%. Insane, insane money. So like that was one element that really attracted me to just being able to stake, and the fact that you guys made a decision to make sure that you're giving back to the investors, to the users, to those who believe in the project. But then you just touched on it too, that there's only 10 million in supply, which if you're actually trying to build out not just this project, but multiple games and projects on this, that is crazy. I mean, there's going to be potential for multiple buybacks over, you know, the next couple of years. So as a initial investor, I mean, that's very incredible to me. And, you know, I mean, it's very exciting. And this is all, as I understand it, like you're fighting for ETH with Illuvium, right? But one question I did have is, I know that you guys built on Immutable X. So has there ever been any decision or talks around maybe tying in the IMX token now that it's out as well?
Not yet, to be honest. Like it's not needed. So essentially, it doesn't really matter what token we use to. I mean, Kane's got a stable coin. Like that would be the lowest hanging fruit. Would be use SUSD in game just to give the exposure of that token for our brother. You know, but at the same time, I looked at it like I don't care what people say. I'm an ETH maxi, right? I believe that ETH is going to win the battle. And for that reason, you know, there's so many people that are holding that token. It's so accessible now. It's on every single exchange in every single country, basically. And so you can get ETH wherever you are. And so for us, it just made sense to make it ETH now. And we're not ruling out the different currencies coming in and using stable coins and Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. But right now, to keep it simple, and the way that the reason why I say it doesn't really matter what token it is because the distribution of that doesn't come in ETH, right? We convert it. There's a mechanism in the back end which essentially takes all of the ETH all of that in-game revenue that we're talking about, the shards, the curing of shards, the travel fees, the enhancements, the skins, all of those in-game purchases go inside this vault, and then it's periodically, so it's like it's not weekly, and the reason is we don't want people to be able to front run it, but every so often and quite often we will be buying ILV off the market using that ETH. And if you think about that, that's the other thing where I'm like, people aren't factoring that in. Like if you look at what Axie is doing in terms of revenue, we get even close to that, right? Which I'm very competitive. If I don't, I'm probably going to kill myself. So we're
confirmed.
we're definitely going to get there. But think about the pressure on the market. If we just go and buy 50 million of ILV off Sushi Swap, it's going up, right? It's going up, and then it's up to the stakers. And this is where it gets interesting, right? It's like, okay, well, it's going to go up, but is it going to go down straight away? Because you and I are sitting there going, well, I've got this ILV, I'm going to go and sell it now. Or am I going to go, well, fuck, am I going to sell it or am I going to stake it? Because if I stake it, I'm compounding my Revdis. And it's this system which is just so circular where you keep, it's like me, myself, like I was a massive investor in so many projects before this. And I looked at every single one and I went, like, I don't need more ILV, but it's the thing that I know is going to go up. I know the staking rewards are going to be there. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, my other tokens, my team tokens are going to unlock earlier than when the 12-month lock that I put in back when staking started 6 months ago. But I just psychologically could not do it, even though my team tokens, which I'm not going to sell either, were worth so much more than what I potentially could have earned from or am earning from just doing that original stake. It was like, I can't not do it. Like it's too much. The mechanism is too good to not, you know, I'm speculating going into other projects. I know for a fact there's going to be so much revenue coming in, and I just want as much staked as I can. And that's kind of it.
That's amazing. I mean, I was actually looking the other day at just how much is left in circulating supply. I think it was around like 6%, which is really crazy because I know plenty of people who've locked up their tokens probably now for at least 9 months to a year. And I know that, you know, you guys made the choice to lock up some of the founders tokens as well for 2 years instead of just that single year, right? So it's been pushed out an additional, yeah. So like that just shows the passion and belief that you have in the ability, not only in the project, but also for us as investors to continue to make money in the long term. So, I mean, the tokenomics are phenomenal. You guys absolutely crushed that. One question I did also have is, you know, we've seen some partnerships with Illuvium and like D-Race and Warrena, right? Where you guys actually had Illuvium NFT into those projects. Once the game is out, can we expect some interoperability with other NFT projects into Illuvium worlds? Or I guess, what do those partnerships look like in the future?
So it's tough, right? Like and people like those partnerships, they're what we're going to be calling the indie games of blockchain, right? Like they're smaller games. But there isn't any other games, right? And this is what I say to the community. It's like, I'm always trying to push for more and more things that we can do. more ways that we can add value to that ILV token. And the D-Race partnership was a bit of a test. To be honest, it's a super addictive game. Like it's a very simple but very addictive game. And I got into it and I was just like, you know what? Fuck, like, let's just do a partnership with these guys. Let's test out Rev distribution. Do they have the quality that is going to be interoperable in Illuvium? No, right? They just don't. And so right now it's a tough one because there isn't anyone there are a few games that are in stealth mode, which we technically could do something with, but until someone comes out with, you know, like, let's just say weapons, for example, right? Like, I'm not like, we're not dealing with concept art anymore. Like, we need 3D assets that are properly designed and modeled and textured for it to, otherwise you're just gonna be like, whoa, what is that in our world? You know what I mean? Like, it's just gonna stand out like a sore thumb. So and it's kind of, I don't want to come off as like, you know, we're the like, no one has assets that are as good as ours, but it's just reality right now, right? Unfortunately. And in the future, do I think we'll get there? Absolutely. And I will be pushing to make our world as interoperable with as many different really likewise AAA projects where we can get a weapon in our game that you can play in a different game, and you might be able to have like Arlen in a different game and then their character in our game. But first show me a 3D model of a humanoid that's on the same level of what you saw in the trailer just before, and then we'll talk. Until then, we're kind of a little bit stuck.
No, that makes sense. I mean, basically, you've built this incredible quality. So, in order for another partner to come in and have that with the game, it needs to be the same, if not better. And I mean, right now, you guys are up here, so there's got to be a big catch up period, right? So, that makes sense.
But it'll happen. It definitely will happen. I'm not ruling it out. It's just, it's to build this type of the quality that we're going with. It takes a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
I mean, the gameplay looks incredible, and I love all of the tokenomics behind it. But I really want to discuss what all of us are chomping on the bit for, and that is land. Let's talk land. Because I know that there are tiers and there's no hard numbers that I've seen yet around it. I've seen a bunch of speculative numbers, but I definitely want to understand, you know, I guess a little bit more about the tiers for those who are actually looking to buy land, possibly when. And I think that's probably coming in 2022, correct?
It's a tough one. Like, this is probably a leak that I'm giving you because we haven't announced this, but it's looking like it's going to be like we'll be ready around the 15th of December, but it's not the best time to launch something, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just not. And the reason why I'm not giving a hardline date, and it probably will be early next year, is we're reliant on an audit as well. And when you're talking about, you know, the size of the land sale that we're looking to run here, like, there's 20,000 plots that are going to be available. We have 500,000 people that have subscribed to our newsletter, like who have registered for Illuvium, let alone our Twitter, our Discord, and everything else. So when you're talking that the rarity of these things, it's going to be a huge sale. Like, and I've been in enough of these land sales, and the amount of land sales that come out and people are like, yeah, we're selling land. And it's like, okay, what does the land do? And they're like, oh, it'll do something in like 2 years. And it's like, what the fuck are you selling it for now? Like, sell it in 2 years then. We've got a use case for that land on day one where, and it's not connected to the blockchain on day one. We need to wait until Illuvium, the main game, launches, because they are interconnected. But there's a use case where you can start playing that game immediately on the land that you purchased. So there's going to be demand, and with demand, there's going to be a lot of people. And so the last thing that we want is some kind of, malfunction or some kind of attack vector that opens up. We need to make sure, and we work very, very closely with QuantStamp. They've been amazing with us. I don't want to put the pressure on them to say, hey, Richard, who's a good mate of mine, he's the one who runs QuantStamp. I don't want to be like, dude, we need this ordered in 4 days because we've got this sale coming out. So it's something that I'm going to have to massage into the community and say, like, sorry, like, we could do it, but it's for everyone's safety of the project, of yourselves, and investors, that we need to make sure that it's airtight. And it could, I'm not ruling it out, it could be this side of the year, but it's most likely going to be very, very early next year, like very early Jan.
Got it. I mean, that gives me more time to save up all the Ethereum to participate in as many parcels as I can.
Or SILV. We're allowing people to purchase in SILV, which a lot of people, I said like 4 or 5 months ago, I was like, look, you've got locked up. So with the tokenomics, your ILV is obviously the rewards are locked for 12 months. SILV is not. And so a lot of people have switched from claiming ILV to SILV because they know this sale is coming out. And so I'm just as disappointed that it's not going to be sooner. I'm the most impatient person alive, like literally. But at the same time, the silver lining is kind of like, all right, well, I'm going to get, more SILV. I'm going to accumulate that. I've been claiming SILV for the past 4 months now because I'm going deep on this sale. Like I'm buying as many plots as I possibly can.
And that's actually good to know because I'm in an Illuvium Telegram group, and there's always that great debate of what do you claim for your rewards, the ILV and then restake, and then you're waiting an X amount of time to actually be able to use it, or SILV. And I've always been on the side, well, SILV will be able to use in the game immediately. So why would I not claim that? And then if I really wanted to, I've heard, you can sell it if you want and get more Ethereum, but I would rather just use it in the game that I know I'm going to be active in, right? So
exactly,
that makes sense to me. And you touched on there's going to be immediate utility to the land. So I've heard that you'll be able to, mine resources for shards. And there's something around fuel. Can you touch on, I guess, like what that utility looks like?
Yeah, so there's 3 types of fuels, and they essentially, depending on the tier, so the higher tier land that you have, the more resource sites that you have on the act to be able to tap into. There's it's random what you get on those tiers, but it's a very tight parameter. So you're not, if you buy a tier 3, you're going to get, I think that if we go through it, tier 1, you've got 3 element sites and 1 fuel site. Tier 2s have 6 element sites and 3 fuel sites. Tier 3s have 9 element sites and 6 fuel sites. Plus, then once you get to tier 3, you start having the element landmarks, which we can get into. It gets pretty detailed, but tier 4, even more, and then tier 5, as you touched on earlier, that's when you get the most amount of resources, and additionally, you get an arena on your land as well, which is that, again, another conversation that we can get deep into another time, probably, because we're going to run out of time. But there's these 3 fuels, and they're required. They basically go, they're sold into think of it like a balancer, like a liquidity pool, where you've got ETH on one side and you've got these 3 fuel resources on the other. And so the landowners are mining as much fuel as they can, and they're selling it into this pool. And the people on the other side are requiring this fuel because in order to cure shards, travel around, all of the in-game mechanisms require this fuel from Illuvium 0. And so you've got this dual-sided pool where the landowners want to sell into that so they can get the ETH from the guys who want the fuel. And so they're literally interconnected, and the price of some of these things, like the price of curing shards, will fluctuate based on how much fuel the landowners are selling into this pool, right? And it's not a crazy amount. We're not going like, okay, let's make it 90% is required from the landowners, because then obviously they can do some crazy things where they band together and they say we're never going to sell any fuel. Then all of a sudden, to cure a shard, it costs like $8 billion, and the game balance goes out of whack. It's a small percentage, and it's based on giving those landowners utility, because I don't know, maybe they don't want to play the Illuvium game. Maybe they just want to play the land game because it's an idle clicker and it's easier to play. There's just so many different things, and like there's so much game theory that goes into that Illuvium Zero that I'm so excited to see it working, because it's another thing that Aaron's developed where it's just like he came to me with that and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like it's not just a game, it's interconnected with the economy of Illuvium. It's sick.
You said something there, and I know we're close on time. I've got like two more questions, but
All good, all good.
But you said something there about basically, maybe they don't want to play the game, maybe they just want to hold the land. And this is like a little debate I've gotten in with a few people as well, just kind of thinking, is it possible that being a landowner or a baron or whatever, however many parcels you want to have, could be as, if not more lucrative than staking?
Yes, it could be. It definitely could be. And I mean, it all depends on the demand, right? Like the demand from the game. If we go from 100,000 players to 1,000,000 players, there's going to be a lot more people who are wanting that fuel because they want to cure shards. They wanted it. And again, the flip side of that is they might not want to play Illuvium Zero, right? They just need the fuel. Like if you don't have that fuel, you can't cure a shard, you can't capture an alluvial, nothing works, right? So they have to work simultaneously.
That's amazing. And then, I've heard in you in past interviews how you're talking about, like, I think they asked about like an MMO or something like that, but you said initially like people could almost create like clans and kind of like band together. Is it possible to I guess kind of work with people or clan together for actually making like a super city or a large collection of parcels that all work simultaneously?
Yeah, so I had the only input that I had into, apart from some of the like the finance, like the actual pricing of the land and the way we're going to sell the land. In terms of the actual game, the only input that I had was that, and I was blown away with what they presented to me. It was Johnny, our CTO, and Aaron, who came to me, and I was like, this is amazing, but we need the ability, and I was sort of channeling. I've said it before. There's this movie called The Castle, which is an Australian movie, and in this movie, there's this massive airport conglomerate that wants to build a new airport in this city or in this town. It's like this regional town, and there's these guys who have owned this family who have owned this land for years and years and years and years. It's gone through generations, and they essentially don't want to sell. And what happens is, like, everyone else in the town has gone, you know what, like, they're offering us ridiculous amounts of money. They're gonna build an airport, they're gonna make shitloads out of that, but I'm getting 10 times the amount that I would for my land, purely because a big conglomerate or company or whatever you want to call it wants it. And so I said to him, I said, dude, like, let's allow people to build these mega cities if they're touching each other, if they're close to each other. And so you might get a guy who goes out and buys a tier 1 plot, right? Very, very, don't want to release pricing or whatever, but it's
Dang
capable for people to get. It's the least expensive parcel of land. He or she has just bought this one plot, and you've got this conglomerate that's like got all the land around it, and he's just been buying and buying and buying and buying this well. And you get this one dude who's just holding a single tier 1 plot, and he's like, I need that to complete my mega city so I can start producing ridiculous amounts of fuel and making tons and tons of cash. And that tier 1 owner might just be like, no, I love my tier 1 land. And then it's like, okay, you paid, call it $500 for it or whatever it is, right? I'm giving you 50,000 right now. And he's like, no, I know you want to build this mega city. You clearly do. You own all the land around me. And then they're like sitting there and you're weighing up, okay, well, if we get the mega city, we're going to be producing $1 million worth of resources compared to our 100,000. So they're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm going to offer you $500,000 for this tier 1 piece of land. And then the little guy who's not a whale, he just got in there, bought some land early. He's sitting there and he's fucking rich now. He's sitting there and he's made it. That's why I wanted to introduce that for the little guys out there to have their ability to go, you know what, my land matters just as much as your tier 5 land matters.
That's incredible. I mean, there's already like a community engagement that's forced almost if you're trying to build out and you have to engage with that parcel owner. And then there's all of this economy that is actually going to inject itself into the game where you have to almost figure out like, is this a long hold? Are they going to keep moving my way? Like that's insane. I mean, oh man, I'm so excited for this game.
Yeah, like there's so many different strategies that you can take. And I've been speaking like there's people who like I'm one of them. Like I'm literally loading up on as much land as I possibly can because I know how important it will be. And you know, the thing that I'm struggling with is like if I go out and buy 500 land plots, who's going to be the person playing those? Like you still need to do things to be able to mine the resources and get that fuel. So I'm like gonna have to borrow one of the guilds that I've invested in and say like, can you give me 500 people to sit there do like working my land? So like there's just so much complexity involved, and it's going to be super exciting to see what happens.
Forgive me if this has been asked before, but is there any form of, I guess, whitelist or pre-sale, or is it going to be like Dutch auction? How is the land going to be dropped when it goes to the public?
Dutch auction. So there's 20,000. It's the fairest way that you can sell anything. Right? Like we don't want it to be a gas war. We don't want it to be. It's very similar to our balancer sale in that we are pricing these things higher than they should be valued. What we perceive as the value, and we do a lot of research into this stuff. And this is, you know, this is why I'm so adamant. Like let us as core contributors set things. We know what we're doing. Like in the balancer sale, we set that at a higher price, and one of our VCs came in, and I think this is why people think that they did our tokenomics, which they didn't, but they came in and said, no, it's too high. And we're like, we have explained to the community that it's not too high. And what happened was people, instead of them, they lowered that price, and immediately, so it went from, I think we were meant to start at 100 originally, that was the core contributors. Then it got dropped down to 50. And all that happened was people were like, well, it should be 100. So, oh my God, I'm going to FOMO in. And we were like, do not FOMO in. We've set these prices to go down rapidly. If they don't sell, they'll go down rapidly. So it's not like, and there's 20,000 of them. You don't need to be sitting there going like, FOMO. Like that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to set them at a price where it's a Dutch auction, where they decline over time, and you can find your price, whether it's a tier 1 or a tier 4 plot, or even a tier 5 if you're crazy, and you can find that price point that you are comfortable with. And that's all we're trying to do. And we will, as soon as we put out this IIP, which has got the pricing and whatever, that narrative will begin again, where we'll be telling people, do not FOMO in. Do not do that. This mechanism is done in a way for it to be as fair as possible for you, the community, which is all we care about. We're nothing without the community. And so yeah, that's the mechanism that we're using in terms of pricing. We're hopeful that we'll get that out by the end of next week, and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
pretty confident on that. We should have that done.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, I really appreciate this interview because it's giving me more knowledge, right? It's getting me more excited as an investor, as a future game player. And I mean, I'm very excited to see everything come to fruition, which it's not far away, right? So it is really impressive to see what you guys have built, and then also to now have some alpha knowledge on what you're planning to build, right? To actually build this full franchise that Illuvium is just right now in, the first gear up. So I really appreciate this interview, and I'm sure all my community as well will. And for those who are, curious on learning more about Illuvium, I'll put the website, the Discord, the Twitter, all in the details of the video. And I highly recommend you look into this project because, again, it sounds like we're simply in phase one of what's going to be a monster of a project. So, any other, like last thoughts or tips for people looking into the project, Kieran?
I think we've gone through quite a bit, but yeah, I would say don't sleep on Illuvitas. They're coming out soon. You'll need to. I know we didn't talk about it today, but you'll need to go into the Discord. But yeah, I mean, our Discord is the source of truth for everything. Like the moderate, from literally the core contributors to the moderators to just the general community consensus. Everyone is so positive. Everyone's so excited about the game. If you have any questions whatsoever, they will help you immediately. There's channels there for you, and yeah, just get involved because this is the first game ever to be run by the community. It's literally, we have set up a system, a governance system where you as a token holder can have input in everything that we do in Illuvium. It's the first time it's ever happened. So if you want to join and just be an observer of what is going on here in this thing that we've built, definitely get in the Discord. And yeah, really appreciate you having me on. I'm more than happy to come on with, I think Grant and I need to do an interview together at some point. So maybe that's with you. I don't know. But yeah, really appreciate you having me on your channel. And yeah, happy to talk again.
Absolutely. I would love a round two sometime, but it's been a pleasure meeting you. Again, very excited to see as you guys build out, and hopefully we'll have a round two coming soon.
100%. Thanks,
Oh,
Taps.
thanks so much, Kieran. Cheers.
Cheers.